Hey guys, it's Colleen Gallagher and Mo. We are super, super excited because this is the second episode in our three-part series of the art and manifestation, or the art and science of manifestation. And this part two, is going to be all about the neuroscience mindset versus the spiritual work, energy work with manifestation. Like, really, what is that? Last week we went into our episode one or part one of this. We went into the kind of the masculine and feminine of manifestation and how the two really move together. And now we really want to go more into the science and the spiritual because it's really important to understand that because there's two ways to do it. So, yeah, I'm super excited. And I don't know, Mo, if you want to open up about your first thoughts of the science and spiritualness behind manifestation or the woo woo and the more grounded or what your thoughts are, but then we can go into it.
Yeah, I do love the neuroscience for really just stimulating your brain for mindset and manifestation. I mean, I love it all, but um, so Andrew Huberman talks a lot about trying to understand. Well, Andrew Huberman is just one of them, but he's kind of like my favorite newest neuroscientist, and he talks a lot about how what you think and what you say actually has an effect to how you feel and how you interact and how you go about your day. The understanding of neuroplasticity to be able to learn and absorb information and whatnot and so forth. And I think that all has it all has some form of application to your day to day. But I just want to simplify it for the people listening and just kind of go like a step by step type of a list of importance. First and foremost, I think a lot of people overlook the fact that that rest, recuperation, and pure like play. And by play, I mean like things that you enjoy to do that have they have absolutely zero effect to like your work. So something that you enjoy, maybe it's, playing an instrument, maybe it's playing soccer, basketball, drawing, puzzles, board games with your family, going to the gun range, whatever it is, like to have some form of true enjoyment of being able to play and just have that time for you dedicated every single week. I think is huge. The other portion is rest, true rest. A lot of times we live in the world where we are constantly doing things. Like I just explained to you that I've been on calls since 4:30 this morning, and yes, I'm not physically doing anything that's laborious. I'm not lifting things, day in and day out, hour after hour. But your brain gets exhausted, and there's too much stimulation. There's too much stimulation from light, too much stimulation from screens, and like I'm losing my voice. Like you can hear me clearing my throat. So there's you have to be able to find a way to understand that your body, your brain does need rest, and that's a huge proponent. The other proponent, and we're going to go into your things, but the other proponent that I really love, that is backed by science and as well as the woo woo, is the science of or the art of gratitude, and how important gratitude is to your pursuit of achieving goals and being able to increase serotonin levels so that you can get in that state of mind of feeling happy and whatnot, which also coincides with like meditation. And I think a lot of people overanalyze meditation. I think people think that meditation is some like you have to go through some some long journey with a guru and you have to learn these things and whatnot. But you don't. It's as simple as just being able to turn off your brain and just focusing on one thing. And I like to focus on my breath. And it's a daily practice. It's something you have to do every day. And by I mean having in the sense that if you want to progress and you want to become better and you want to become more connected to yourself and to everything that's around you, then with anything that you have to do in life, you have to practice it. And I think that's huge. And that also leads to understanding what gratitude is, because it's proven that gratitude makes you happier, like on a scientific level, that it makes you happier and it allows you to create a success mindset. Because when you're in the state of gratitude, you're in the state of wanting, like when I'm in gratitude, I want to give. I want to give, and I want to share, and I want to share experiences. I want to share thoughts. I want to have, amazing conversations, and I want to be able to connect with people. And when you're not in the state of gratitude, you're thinking, negative thoughts, and you might be in a victim mentality. Oh, woe is me. You might be bitter, resentment, and that falls off of you. That's energy just kind of like spewing off of you. And if you have a family, it can omit to a lot of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and it gets spread like a virus, and like your children might see it, and your significant other might see it and feel it. And even though you're not trying to do anything, it's very real, and that's not something that you want to have happen and to carry through your environment. So, excuse me. So I think that's very important for me, because you have to be deliberate in understanding that gratitude is a powerful tactic, and to be in a state of gratitude takes practice. And I think we touched on this our last episode, but it's difficult to be in gratitude when you're trying to create something that may seem like pure fallacy and it's not real. So I try to put myself in a position. I actually just had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was talking about how he was able to manifest his life in literally under 4 years. He went from being on the couch, being a drunk and having issues with alcoholism, a broken family, essentially, like everything was miserable, to thriving successfully, building a $30-40 million company, and having the most amazing relationship with his children and with his wife. And he's like, all I did was every day I would practice being in a state of gratitude, and I write down, the things that I want, but I would write them down like I've already achieved them. And I would have to trick my brain. And eventually it became part of my belief system, and that it was real. It was no longer like the thing that could happen. It became the reality. So now my reality is like, now I'm starting to write things that are, I'm having bigger visions and bigger goals and things that I'm having to write down, from manifesting to be an author, to public speaker, this, that, the other, better husband, better father. And the way that he did it was interesting, Colleen. He would write like, I'm going to be on stage speaking with like the best speakers and entrepreneurs in the world. Like, and it was vague, but it was specific at the same time. And he would write it like it had already happened, not like how I just said it and I completely confused the fuck out of people. But he would write it as though it already took place. And I thought that was fascinating. Anyways, that's enough about me talking. We can go into a little bit more further later on.
One of my biggest practices, and it's funny, we're relaunching my 8-week How to Become a Powerful Manifestor course right now. And this is the second time I've run it live. It was a recorded course I did back in 2019 where I ran it live, and then I've sold it self-study. And so I'm really excited. But one thing that you said that's super powerful, and I even have my notebook here, I always have different journals, but a big practice of mine is journaling, right? Almost every single day. I mean, not almost every single day I journal, right? And yeah, you want to journal about your life from the present tense, like it's already done. So instead of saying like, instead of saying I'm wanting to be a millionaire, I'm so excited, be like, I am now so grateful I am a millionaire. Like you feel it, you're stating it in the present, like you said, like it's already done. You're not like putting it out there in the future, because if you're talking in the future, your subconscious mind is always going to put it out there. It's always going to go into the future. So you want to, a huge part of the science and neurologically, like your body has a chemical reaction when you're saying like, this is now, like example, like if I was to like really think of like right now, I was thinking of a big betrayal that happened or whatever, like I would have a chemical response. Like I would either become angry, I would become sad, or I would like, whatever, like example, like there was like Valentine's Day today, right? There was like someone, I was like, oh, I hope they text me, and they didn't text me yet. And I was like, I'm so sad, right? Like this is like something that happened, right? Like this, and I was like, but why think that way? Like I need to think like, obviously God's having it happen for this, like having it happen for a reason. It's the highest good of all. And obviously like the highest in my life was not for that person to text me, like let the miracles and magic come in. And I switched that conversation really, really quickly. But if you let yourself wallow in the present of what actually is, you will get sad or anxious or depressed or angry or whatever. And you can change your state in any moment. So yeah, you always want to be looking at, okay, I mean, I guess I'm very future oriented. I always have been, but like you always want to look at what do you want your future to be? And maybe people don't think like that. I mean, I guess maybe more people should, but like, what do you want your life to be like? Like, I know I could not wake up and be living the same life day in and day out. Like it would literally bore me. I just couldn't. it's like a fear almost. And I feel like there has to be a way when you begin to think like, I want my life to be different. I always want it to grow and evolve. I want the adventure. I want there something to be, I don't know. I want there to be something greater. And you allow yourself then to become open and available for ideas. And that has a neurological chemical response, like you said, within your thoughts, within your body for you to react a certain way. And you can change that state. And that's just a practice. So that's definitely the science behind it. And the neurological response behind it, like getting your subconscious, the present tense, writing, speaking. Yeah, and it's always more powerful to write things than to type things because when you're writing it, there's more muscles that have to use it in your body. So the muscle memory is stronger. Whereas when you're typing, there's not as many. And they always like one of the biggest things between a millionaire and a billionaire is a billionaire writes their goals and a millionaire types their goals, which I thought was funny. But I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. There's like stats, but the energy behind it is like that's where the imagination comes in. Like, right, that's where the future, like, this is what I love to happen. This would be the most amazing, out of the box, out of the experience thing. Like, I actually was at a party. What was it, a week ago now? Like no, 2 Fridays ago. So, and when I was at that party, there was a guy, he's much older, he was in his 70s. He came up to me and he was like intellectual, smart, beautiful. I was like, yes. And he was like laughing. And then he was like, so what do you want? And I was like, I was like telling him, he's like, dream bigger. I was like, well, I actually would love to be like an investor in like spaceports, like how there's airports. I want to be an investor in the spaceports. Like as we design it for when we go into space, like that would be one of my cool dreams. He's like, think bigger. And I was like, oh my God. And like, literally I couldn't, like he tapped me out on where I was like thinking bigger. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I met you. Like he literally was like expanding me, even than what I've already feel like I went beyond. And it was just so cool. And that's the magic. That's the spiritual side. That's the energetic side of manifestation. It's like, that's the side that's the intangible. And then you have to practically though, like practice bringing that into reality. You can't just do it for a moment of like, oh my God, the magical, and I want a 6-pack for a second. And that would be so nice if I have that. And then like you say it, but then there's nothing that you continually do to get it. And I think people are like, oh, but it's so much work. But it's like, it's more work to not do this. Like it's like more painful and more work in the long run to not do things like this. So yeah, I think that's really my sense around, I think, both of them. But I think you said some powerful things. And I definitely, like, I know what you're saying with that guy. I mean, I haven't created a $30 or $40 million company, but I mean, in 4 years, I've really changed my life in so many ways. Like, be able to travel the world, my master's, my PhD, 3 books, 25 online courses, a 70,000 person community, a podcast, products. Like, yeah, it blows my mind, to be honest, what's happened in 4 years. Like, in that, it just all stemmed from a desire of wanting more. And when you do that, you naturally become open and available for different habits and actions in your life. And then you do them and you see what works, and then it gives you a result. And then you just keep going. I don't know. It's so hard for me to try to even think of a life where you wouldn't want to do that, I guess. Like even traveling the world, like why wouldn't you want to travel the world? Like, I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you want to? It's just so hard for me to even comprehend the desire to stand still versus the desire for more. And I don't know, maybe that's, some people might say it's greedy, or some people say whatever, but like you're meant to live a life of moreness. You're meant to live a life of every desire and thing that you wish you had so your life would be easier. Like you're meant to make that happen. If you want a private chef, if you want a maid, if you want someone to do, like if these are things that are annoyances, like you literally have these thoughts of what you want because they're meant there so you can get that. Yeah, I don't know. I think everyone has those thoughts, but maybe you just suppress them or aren't being honest about them being there.
Yeah, or they're just, or they're just buried because of societal standards and what has been taught to us, at an early age. Like, I mean, I always reference Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it's a great explanation and an example of 2 different thought patterns. You've got his poor dad that, didn't have this abundance mindset, and abundance, excuse me, abundance isn't, when we talk about abundance, it's not specifically financial, but the thing is that the only thing in the world that in our society that moves things is money, the monetary source of money. Money is a tool. It's a tool in order for us to be able to leverage things. Right? We can inspire people. We can employ people. We can help people. We can help ourselves. We can create opportunities. I mean, it's just a tool. And so when people think of like, oh, there's just money isn't the end all be all, it's not. It's the purpose behind it. It's the value that we're building outside of it. Money is just a tool, just like your pencil is a tool or your pen is a tool, right? You can't write with just your fingers. I mean, you can, but that would suck because you'd have to probably, prick yourself to let out some blood every time you wanted to write something. So, like, again, it has practical application. The funny thing is that you mentioned about writing things down. I was always curious about this because I would write all my notes on my phone, and it wasn't until I spoke to, pardon me, I forget who it was actually, but they told me that the difference between writing things down versus typing is that when you write things down, you're creating like over 10,000 neural pathways in your brain in like one sitting, whereas if you were to type it, it's only 600 neural pathways. So it's significantly more impactful to be able to write things down because, like you said, you're moving more muscles and what have you. So, it's like what, 15, 16 times as useful, or at least as useful in the sense that it is creating those neural pathways, which opens you up to, a myriad of opportunity. But going back to the thing you were talking about, I think what most people don't have this growth mindset is, again, it's the rich dad, poor dad mentality. It's, you have one perspective that's being, brought upon you throughout your life where it's the standard that was instilled in us since the Industrial Revolution, where you're going to go to school, you're going to get a good education, you'll graduate, you'll go get a good job, you set up a good career, you work at a great company, you retire from that company, you live off your retirement, you build a family, you buy a house. That's the American dream. Excuse me. But the American dream is no longer the American dream because it's an outdated it's an outdated formula.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that people actually realize what was taking place at that time is that everybody was an entrepreneur at one point.
I agree.
There was no employee. Like,
even if it was of the home,
everybody
even if
was
it was
a business
woman
owner.
in the house. It's still a transferable skill. I mean, I just want to put that there because anyway. But yes, go on.
Yes, absolutely. And so, that's the reality. And something along the way, somewhere it shifted, and we're still stuck in that mindset of, this is the traditional route. And this is just my belief system and my own opinion. So you take this with a grain of salt, but unless you're wanting to specify in something that absolutely requires you to have a degree, like in the medical field, an attorney, a lawyer, an architect, what have you, where you absolutely have to have a degree, then go for it, because those are their prerequisites. There's no other option available to you in order to become the thing that you want. But if you fall in line with anything else, like, you need to look at other options, and you have to understand that there are potentials now for, self-education, online education, different strategies for you to implement to be able to learn. I didn't know I enjoyed learning until I was an adult. Like, that's crazy. I didn't like school. The only part of school that I enjoyed was the social aspect of things. Apart from that, I wasn't a fan. There wasn't anything that really excited me. I thought I hated science. I grew up and I fell in love with science because I learned the things that I wanted to learn. So it's just like you can't always assume that just because you may not have a growth mindset, it's necessarily your fault. It's only your fault if you don't do anything about it. And if you're not, listen, if you're happy making 40 grand a year and you are living a full and purposeful life and genuinely enjoying every single moment, then you're fucking winning. Yeah. That's my opinion. But if you're making, $150K a year and you hate your job and you're miserable and you take it out on your family and you can see the misery spewing from you, then you got to look at other options. Like, money isn't the only common denominator to look at when you're trying to make strategies and shifts in your life. But, not unfortunately. Fortunately, we live in a world where we can create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Literally.
No,
and make a profit from it.
I was going to say one thing you said that I was going to say back.
I know I got
No,
a little. I got a little sidetracked.
You're
I
good. No,
apologize, but I just thought I had
you
some
loved it. I
reference.
wanted to go backward just a little bit when you were talking about like, yeah, like everyone's an entrepreneur. And one thing that came to my mind, or one thing I wanted to say is like, right, one thing that I think it's really important and like why I feel so inspired by my journey is like, I genuinely do not enjoy cooking. And I know that sounds like so bizarre, right? Because like just gender norms and everything, right? Like I
No, my wife doesn't like it either. I'm the chef
yeah,
in the
like I
house.
genuinely do not enjoy it. Like there's some things you like enjoy. Like
Hmm.
this is just not one of them. Coffee, I enjoy getting
Yeah.
coffee. I enjoy making coffee. I enjoy finding whatever like that I enjoy. But I had to like when I was younger, right? Like I thought in a lot of ways. I mean, I knew I didn't want to get in a relationship young. I've shared that before, but I always have this fear, like if I got in a relationship and like, am I gonna have to? I'm so committed to my career. Am I gonna have to like cook and worry about this and that? And like, it's just not a desire. So then I began to think, obviously, if this is such a dislike in my mind, what if there's a desire that's being birthed here? And the desire that I realized is like, what if I could hire a private chef or what if I could do whatever? And so what if I start writing my reality out
Hmm.
of, I am now so grateful I have a private chef. I'm now so grateful I have in-home staff that someone can do this. I'm now so grateful I have a nutritionist. Like, and I started to write those things out, right? Like as it was already done. And I've never hired that's like a private. Well, I have had private chefs. I mean, but like full time, like an in-house. But I'm sure I will, like once I have a family or do things. Like for sure, that's a goal that I've aligned to and I'd love to have. And I think why I wanted to share that is that the science and the art behind man, or the science and the spiritualness behind manifestation is like I had this feeling inside of me that and your feelings are spiritual because your feelings come from source. Your feelings come from an energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it's coming from something that's existing. And so the more that you acknowledge it, that's when the magic can be birthed. And from the magic, I then took it into the actual application of the writing of the things. But I think for a lot of us, we suppress those or we feel bad. And if I would have walked around my whole life being like, oh, I hate cooking, but I'm just going to do it, or this or that, and I never would have seen like maybe there is a creative solution here. Maybe there is an idea where I can do something different, like that would have harbored within me. And the other thing that I like that you said, and I think it's super important to talk about, is like people who have moms or dads who have chosen to stay at home and done like the at home route. I think there's so much shame and guilt around this as well. When it's like your skills, like I mean, I can tell you, if I've seen a stay-at-home mom or dad, I mean, you guys are organized, know everything to pull out of your pocket, your thing, you know what websites to go to. I mean, you are like super person on steroids, like all these little things of how to do this. You absolutely can transfer that into a manifestation of money, into a manifestation of love, into a manifestation of like support. Like there's so many things that you can do. It's just a choice and a decision that, okay, instead of me just doing this, like here, I'm going to also do it in a way of money. I'm also going to do it in a way of earning. And I don't know. I just think like there's just so much judgment sometimes that we place on ourselves or we place on people around,
Hmm.
I don't know, like around this stuff. So I wanted to say that if there's something you don't like, right, in your life, and there's something that bothers you, there's a reason that it's bothering you, and there's a spiritual solution, or there's an energetic solution that's being asked to come through you so that you don't have to do things you don't want to do. And that's really manifestation. Manifestation is getting yourself into a state where you're living in a life of joy, and you start slowly like this, right? The things that I wanted that I wouldn't do now, like I wouldn't even dreamed of before. Like now it's so funny. Like even when I lived in Cabo for the like 3 weeks in November, it was funny. Every single morning I was at this resort. Every single morning I called them. I got roomed, ordered, what's it called? Latte, vanilla, almond milk. Literally the guy would drive the golf cart down, knock on my door. Eventually he would just open it because he knew I wasn't getting out of bed, delivered it right to my bed. And it was funny, like the woman next to me, she's like, you are hilarious. She's like, but you've really dialed this in. And I was like, I would have never thought like that. You know what I'm saying? That like, I'm like, oh, that's too much or too bougie or whatever. And like, now it's just a desire I have. So why be mad about it? I like that. I do that. And now the next thing is like, I want to have my own cafe or my own machine in my home and like learn how to do that. Like, I think that'd be epic. So like my desire, like before I would have felt so guilty and shameful for something like that, but it's not, you don't need to feel it. Like it is your desire and it's there for a reason, and just trust it and make it happen and write about it. Like I would have never written about a coffee machine in my home or like a top, 1,000 podcast to a top 500 podcast that I'm doing now. Like I would have never had those thoughts. I would have never done those things. But as you do it, they come more and more and more. I think the first step is just the hardest, to be honest about yourself. And actually I loved like Kim Kardashian just said that in her third Vogue issue, like be honest with yourself about what you want and choosing yourself. And then you can make it happen. I talk about that in my third book, An Uncompromised Life, like really choosing you. And so That's like the art. The art is the choosing you. The spiritual part is choosing you. The spiritual part is the connection. The spiritual part is like slowing down enough to feel it all. And then from the feeling, doing the work. Like that is the art in the science of manifestation. That is the neuroscience, because once you feel it and then neurologically you begin to act from this place of feeling, neurologically you are having a different chemical reaction in your body, what's creating different habits in you and creating you to think differently. Like today, when I literally had a thing, I was like, oh, I'm so sad. Someone didn't text me for Happy Valentine's Day. And then I was like, obviously it's for the highest alignment. Obviously it's for the highest growth. Like I trust it and I believe it and just move forward with life. And it's showing me a sign. I'd rather get the sign earlier than much later. Like I change it. Doesn't mean I'm not sad, but I change the state and I don't dwell there.
Yeah. Do you are you a fan of Valentine's Day? I feel like for some reason I thought that you would be a person that would think that it's built on
I
nonsense.
do, like in a way I do. And I definitely think I've been, and I think in the past I've been like very anti, what's it called? Anti holidays, anti things. Like for sure, I think I've been that way. And I don't know what
Yeah.
shifted in me. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's not even like you need to, because like, yeah, it's not like it's a big, I don't know. It's not like it's a big thing, but I guess when you care about someone, right? And there's like, you feel like there's whatever, it doesn't have to be like, I mean, it's kind of like a good morning text, I guess, in the same way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to, like, every morning or something, you're not like expecting someone to be like, good morning. But when you get it, you're like, oh my God, yay. Like, it never really loses the specialness if it's really coming from the heart. And I think how I've transitioned in some ways of what I feel about holidays or celebrations, it's more just a time to be extra present or extra whatever. But I don't think it's needed. I think everyone needs to figure it out on their own. But I definitely have been anti in the past. Like, this is so dumb. And like, why is this? Like, I've been way anti and I've kind of balanced more now. But I'll always, my favorite number is
Hmm.
13. And so always my favorite day is the 13th of every month, because 13 represents the goddess. So yesterday was goddess day. So it's always, that is always my favorite day, like the goddess day of love. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
Got us in what sense? In like mythology? Forgive
yeah,
my
no, no, no.
ignorance.
So yeah, the number 13 is it was coined unlucky because it was like representing like back in the witch, kind of the witch phase. It was like representing the goddess energy or the feminine energy. And so
Uh-huh.
why it's still coined unlucky is actually because if you go back to like witch trials and things, they look, and it was Jesus and the 12 disciples, like 13, but we don't say 13, we say 12. Like I don't know, there's just like a lot of like numbers like that if you go through
Oh.
different religions or just things, there's actually 13 instead of like 12 or whatever, but they just don't coin it that way. So anyway, um yeah, that's something, but I think you can manifest whatever you want. And that's the point. That's even like to your point, like I think in the past, like your manifestations can change, your desires can change, your feelings can change, and then from that you can create different realities.
I think it's also interesting to point out that you really have to find clarity in your intentions,
Mm.
when it comes to manifesting, because if I know it's easier said than done, but if it's hard to bridge the gap between desire and outcome,
Mm.
and so you have to look at it from the sense of, okay, well, one reason why we might struggle, like as people, is and this is for anything, is because we don't have intention, nor do we have, or not that we don't have intention, but we can't find clarity in the information, and then we get overwhelmed with the amount of information, and then that's where like paralysis by analysis comes into play. And this is applicable to anything, not just manifesting. In everything, because what ends up happening is that you create this like roadblock in your head. And so for manifesting, if you're not really clear on like what are my true intentions, why am I trying to manifest, like what's the
Yeah.
point in essence, right? then 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 there's really, that's where and this is just for me speaking personally, that's where I felt like there was a big disconnect between the what I'm trying to manifest feeling like a lie, and then the reality that I was trying to create, and there wasn't anything in between, like that was able to connect. And so I was able to understand that, okay, so I need to find what are my clear intentions behind what I'm trying to manifest. What is this life that I'm trying to create, and why is it? So that's when I started writing things down, and and trying to look at my list regularly and find what was fulfilling, and what wasn't, what I found fulfilling and what I found wasn't fulfilling in my life, and then really starting to take an audit of myself on a day-to-day basis, and then understanding that value isn't always succinct with logic, which is, I think, might be a little bit taboo for people, but that was just my own take. What are your thoughts
No,
on
I
that?
like what you're saying. And I mean, in my first book, Live Your Truth, I talk about that, right? You have to become open, but in my first program that goes with that book, which is called How to Create Your Fairy Tale Life, we focus on like, okay, clarity on your purpose. Like, what is the one word with clarity on why you're here and like what that is? And it is important because if you're not clear, right, on what you want, you're not clear on where you want to go and it feels good. You're kind of like dabbling. I think all of
Hmm.
us like dabble, I think like there's a point in your life where you're like, okay, let me try this or let me try that or let me try this. If you're figuring it out, you're dabbling. But once you find the thing,
Yeah.
you need to be
Yeah.
focused. And even when you are dabbling, there still should be an intention. Like I'm dabbling to get clear on what it is I actually enjoy. And I think from there, you begin to go all in. Like I think from there, you begin to just take the action. So yeah, it's so hard because I feel like that's one of my zone of geniuses is clarity. Like I don't have many times in my life where I don't feel like I have a clear direction of where I'm going or what I'm doing. And also because I'm so guided by a higher power than myself, I have such a trust, I have such a relationship, I have such a devotion. I Even if it feels like I don't know what's going on, I always trust that there's a higher purpose or reason. So like I mean, it's so silly, but I keep bringing it up because obviously like even this text message, right, of this person, I really wanted this person to text me. And even if it's not like a big thing, like they already told me they don't even really believe in it. Like we've already talked about it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's already was a talked about topic. And in my heart, I'm still like, oh, but I want them to text me. And like, oh my God, like, like this is the little like person in me, And then I'm like, okay, but if it doesn't happen, right? There's obviously a greater reason. There's obviously something that's more expansive that's meant to come in. There's obviously whatever. And then as soon as I did that, literally I had, what was it, a $20,000 payment come in over like a payment plan for like the next few months. So I was like, oh my God, like as soon as I did that, I released it, like this money came in. I'm not always saying that's the reality, right? But I'm just showing you the energetics of manifestation, right? Like I wasn't even focusing on the manifestation of money. I was focusing on the manifestation of this response or this person to reach out to me. But as soon as I like let it go, then something else came in. And it's like, that is manifestation actually, because my focus was wrong. I guess my clarity was, I don't know, not what. Yeah. God, I'm trying to like think how to put what I'm feeling into words. Like you you have to not judge yourself for what you're feeling, but you have to still know what you want out of this life, right? Like, and I guess like in an example is I didn't know I was going to go this way in in the podcast, but like in a way in this conversation with this person that I'm like, oh my God, please text me this. Like, obviously there's already things I probably know about the relationship that it's not going to work. Like it's not going to be long term. Like I already probably know that. Obviously I wouldn't be saying it, but there's something in me that still wants it. And it's like, okay, so then this is obviously what's healthy. This is obviously the right thing. Maybe there still will be a surprise by the end of the day. Who knows? But I'm not going to focus on it. But if I took my whole day to be sad, upset, blah, 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 and didn't show up to the podcast and didn't, do my other podcast, didn't show up to my clients, didn't do my writing, didn't schedule the things for this week, didn't look at my PhD, didn't do my journaling. Like this is all done by
Hmm.
1:30. And I got my coffee and I did a 30-minute walk. Like these are all things that all happened and you're like, well, how do all those things happen in such a short amount of time? But it's like because time isn't real and when you're beginning to operate when you're beginning to operate in the manifestation, you get so much more done in a small amount of time. And that's the science behind it because you're in a flow state. You're just going, 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 and you don't have to stop the treadmill. You don't have to stop the thing for it to happen. And so what you're saying, clarity. I mean, yeah, you want to know, like, I want a successful business, right? Like, I want to impact a lot of people. I know when people enroll, they're going to have transformational experiences. I love my podcast. I love my coffee. I expect to have amazing coffee every morning. I don't know. Like, you have to have definitely clarity on what are the things that bring you joy, what are the things that bring you whatever, and then just surrender to whatever is being thrown at you, I guess, in a way. Like, I don't know. I don't know what else.
So by surrender,
Go ahead.
at what's being thrown at you, are you? Does that mean? Uh, let go of the things that are out of your control. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think surrendering just means like whatever, once you make the decision, this is like I made a decision, I'm going to have a successful business, right? Multiple six figures, multiple seven figures, hope to have multiple eight figures, like that would be awesome. Um,
And is that something that you practice every day, or is that like a one-time thing and
No, I mean, I
then
don't know if I
you
say
just forget
every
it?
day. Like, I don't know if I go every day. I'm like, oh my God. But it's a constant thought that comes back and forth. Like, before, oh my God, 10 million would have felt so unreachable, right? Like, oh my God, that felt like so much money. I remember I was dating a guy one time, he had a $10 million company. And I was like, I remember just being like, that's so much money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt, and like, now it's much more of a
Mm.
natural conversation. Like 100 million, a billion. Like, I would love to be a billionaire. I think that'd be awesome. Like, I think it'd be with all these products that I'm doing, and I could see how it could work. But like, you can hear the tone of my frequency. I haven't yet claimed 100 million or billion. Like, that feels too outreachable, like unattainable. But 10 million in my life, that's definitely going to happen for sure. Like, you can feel that. And I hope that I can keep aligning to more and more and more. So it's not like, yeah, it's a constant state, right? Like, today was not a day where I'm talking about money or in my journals or in my thoughts. Today's more like a day of like, I released love or I released whatever because of this drama that I'm creating in my mind about this thing. Or like, we have a new team member. Like, there's different things, but when I first was starting my first year in business, I mean, yeah, probably almost every single day I wrote out like, I am going to be a millionaire. I'm a multimillionaire. I am so excited to be a multimillionaire. I'm so now grateful. Like, I literally probably wrote that out every day. Like, now it's so locked in that I don't really think about it, but there's days when you're like going, it's all in a flow. That's the energetics part. Like, that's the art of manifestation. Like, you don't have to sit there and have this practical, logical, linear way from 9 to 9:22. Do this from this to this. Like, it's more of like, this is what's alive and present inside of me today. Let me do that. But everything that's alive is moving you in the direction of where you want to go. Like, right? Like, I've created my life, a lifestyle career, a lifestyle brand where everything I do naturally is an extension of my business, of me. So everything I'm feeling, everything I do can't not grow my business. Like, I've literally wired my brain and my life this way that everything I do is always growing my business. Everything I do is growing my brand. Everything is going to impact people. Everything is growing a community. Like, I've grown it and I say those things, but I didn't just sit out one day, I guess. And like, I got in mentorship, I got in coaching, I got like guides like myself. Like, I've paid a lot of money in education to get these thoughts inside my head. Then I showed up and did the thing, which is the NeuroScience, to now have this neurological pathway that's a natural part of my being. But yeah, that wasn't always a natural part of my being. Definitely not. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think I'm very intuitive. Like, so it's like, if today like felt like it needed to be about money, then I would do it. Like, a couple days ago, it was really heavily on money. I was like really focusing on $10,000 and something like that. And, it didn't happen. Like, I was praying and doing whatever, and I did all the things I felt like I did, and it didn't show up. And I was like, okay, it wasn't meant to show up. And then 2 days later, 20,000. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that day was really heavy in that. So it took like a delayed 2-day time. But in the moment, I'm like, come on, I want this manifestation. Like, I'm like literally like, what is happening? But 2 days really isn't that long.
Yeah, the only reason why I ask and mention is because you are very intuitive, and not a lot of people are. One thing that really helped me was I always thought that perception came before belief. It wasn't until I learned that belief actually came before perception was when things really changed for me. So like, like what is it? The reticular activating system, like when you first hear about a car, or let's say you're looking to buy a car, and it's like, you see that car, and then all of a sudden that's the only car that you see. You start seeing it everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the part of the brain that chooses what information you notice. And so how our brains function is essentially like the thing that we focus on is the thing that we see more of. And that's why, like, I'll give you another example. Like, you're in a room and let's say you're at an event or something. And if you're like constantly focused on like, everyone's an asshole, everyone's a liar, everyone's a critic, then you're creating the circumstances around that belief. And so like, you're going to be hypersensitive to how you're going to communicate with people. And then the evidence that proves that belief to be correct will therefore show itself, right? Whereas if you came from the mindset of like, everyone here is awesome, I'm going to do deals, I'm going to network, I'm going to create 20 new relationships that are going to carry me to a $10 million year. Well, then now you created that belief system, right, for that given mind frame, and then the perception comes into light where you're on that pathway. So I think that is very huge, and it's such a simple thing to to just kind of like think about. It's like, okay, so in essence, this has been scientifically proven. You guys can Google this, NeuroScience. It's called the reticular activating system, RAS for short. But essentially what ends up happening is that what you believe, you perceive. So if you believe you're going to have a shitty day, guess what?
Yeah.
You're going to have a shitty day. That's where like the law of attraction, before everything was backed up by science, that's where it all came from. It's like, well, what you attract, you receive. So if you want to attract negativity, you're going to get negativity. If you attract positivity, you're going to get positivity. That's the kind of thing. And, you know, eliminating negative thoughts also plays in that line. And so now you have a viable way of explaining it. Cool. Well, now I know that as long as I ask for the things that I want versus like, I remember looking back, Colleen, that I would literally ask for the things that I didn't want because I was saying the shit out loud.
Totally.
And then I got more and more of it. I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I totally agree. And so my first,
it was devastating.
I've never heard like what you said, the perception and belief. Like I've never heard someone say that, and I was just reflecting. But it is so true. In my first book, Live Your Truth, I talk about this in the fourth part, which is love, of the 5-step process I share. And like I mean, back to again, like it's funny, but I'm just saying, like I didn't even know why. But back to this text message today, right? Like I could have been like, oh, this, that, you know, whatever, and I didn't ignore those feelings. I felt it, but I go, okay, but is that fundamentally true? No, it's not true. It's not whatever. And there's still the rest of the day left. If it's not going to happen, it's because of, you know, something greater is going to happen, whatever. And I like instantly did it. But if I was to live my life and instead of always thinking worst case scenario, think best case scenario, like example, like I've had very few, like in 4 years in business, I've only had 2 clients ever who have complained, like did not like something, like it was like, and they went through the bank to like refute it or whatever. And one of them, they never showed up to the one-on-one calls. So obviously, like, of course, you're not gonna like, because they're not showing up to the call, and I can't force someone to show up. And the other one, he was like an engineer, and he took one of my manifestation courses on social media, and it just wasn't his vibe, really. Like we had calls, and he was like implementing what I said, and it was like literally working. But I think he wanted more like, he was more masculine. He wanted more like, this is the system, this is the process, tell me what to do. Like, to be fair. So I got that, but he refunded or he asked for a refund on PayPal, and then PayPal, I won anyway. But those were the only 2 clients in 4 years that I've had that were like bad, really, which is kind of shocking. When you think of 4 years, especially in the online space, this is not a brick and mortar store, to have really just 2 that are like that out of hundreds of clients that I've had. That's a pretty good ratio. And I've had some like conversations with people like, hey, I thought this or this, and I've always navigated it really gracefully. And everyone's like, wow, I really appreciate your leadership and whatever that it is. But I've really designed my business back to journaling when I was like, I have soulmate clients. Soulmate clients love to pay me. People love to pay me in full. People love to pay me in abundance. People love to overpay me. Like I literally write this into existence. So I don't really have a lot of client issues. And again, that was from me writing that. That was from me creating that. That was from me just believing, I guess, in a way. Like, I don't know. So I wanted to choose the good. So even like if something bad, like seemingly bad happens, or it's like, it doesn't go well, instead of me going like, oh my God, let me freak out and do this and whatever, I'm like, okay, well, what's the best case scenario? And then I always think like, what's the good that's going to happen from this? You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it's something like that, I always think of the good. And that's how it is. If you think like, oh, this is annoying, or the weight holds, or this is going to be annoying, you can't live your life like, I don't know, like, or even I had someone comment on a picture lately, like I really toned up, especially because I have 60% of male clients. I really toned up my journaling around, like, this was about a year ago, where I was like, the men who comment on my photos are actually ideal clients, or not just commenting on my looks or how hot I am or whatever that it is. Like, they actually are clear clients, engaging with the content. Men actually read the things, like whatever that is. As soon as I started to do that, everything shifted. Like, yes, there's men that will still be like, you're beautiful or this, but it's such a different energy than it was before. Such a different energy than it was before. And even like the people that I get in my Valentine's, it's like the men who are just doing it in their clients, they're not, I mean, so respectful, literally just so sweet, so respectful. And I really created that, right? Like, instead of like being like, oh, and people around me would be like, oh my God, but men online are, and I'm like, I don't know. I have 60% male clients. I don't feel that at all. Like, and of course a man is going to look at either my client and say that I'm beautiful. Like, that's just part, like, let's just call the shots are where the shots are. Like, it's not that's not a bad thing, you know? And I think, yeah, I changed the narrative, right, of what it would mean. I changed the narrative of how it was going to run in my mind so the impact would be greater. And then that changed everything. So yeah, I mean, I changed
Yeah,
my
because
belief.
you
You're right.
said,
And then,
well,
yeah,
yeah, and then you created the environment, which then therefore created the culture,
yeah. So,
which isn't an easy. It's not an easy task, especially for like real masculine men. And when I mean real, I mean men that may have been set in their ways, maybe a little bit older. They old school mental, ways of thinking where the man goes to work, the woman stays at home, kind of thinking. You know what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
I don't have clients like that necessarily because
So
they wouldn't be attracted to me. But yes, I know what you're saying.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I was getting
But
clients.
at the same
Oh, go
time,
ahead. Go.
you'd be surprised. I mean, you would be surprised just how, what when they are ready or receptive. Just if you're receptive and if you're willing to want to have a different perspective, um, you'd be surprised just how many people would actually want to
Yeah,
change.
and I think too, like even if that was, go
Because it's
ahead.
not.
Go ahead.
No,
I was
no.
going to say,
Please
like,
continue.
even if that was
That
your
was it. That
reality,
was
like,
it.
let's say if there was, like, even if that was your reality on things, like, I have guy friends that are a lot older. I've dated, when I'm saying older, like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like, and one of my mentors is 80, right? Like, I have
Yeah.
people, I
Yeah.
have men that are in my life, and yeah, it is very different, like the way they grew up or the way they think, right? But you can say it like in a bad way, like you could say like, oh, whatever, or you could just say like, this is my standard of how I want to be treated, how I want to be taken seriously, and how I want to do business, and this is what I feel like men are gonna do. And then as soon as you make that decision, like as soon as you claim what you
Mm-hmm.
want, the universe responds to you, and that is again a neurological response because you change the belief on what you think people are gonna respond. Instead of saying like all men are like this or all women are like this, like we're talking about my cosmic lover circle right now. Like, how often do people just go like, men are like this, women are like this, blah 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 blah. Like, but you are saying that, so of course it's true. Where to me, I have a very, very, very different reality, like very different. Like, let me give you an example. I mean, this I know we're going to go here, but like, so I was out. This is at this event called Uncork, and there was a guy. He was much young. I mean, younger. I'm saying like young 20s, but very like personality, very young. But he was so funny. I give it to him. So he came up to me and was like talking to me, and he's like, "Let me get your Instagram." And ironically, I signed this guy. I gave 2 books to this guy who works at a bar, and I went back and signed it because this guy, like, he really wanted to rise. So anyway, he followed this guy or something like this. So I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like, who would have thought or whatever. And I told him the story. And so anyway, he was, a very immature for a guy, which a normal 22, 21-year-old guy would act this way. It's not that. But what was so sweet, and this is like a reality, is most guys, right, they text you after I left the event, and they text you to be like, hey, you want to hang out? Or like they do something dumb, like in a way. This guy's so sweet. Like I just thought, he just goes at 3 a.m., he sends a message on Instagram and goes, sup. And my girlfriends and I was like, you know what? Good job. I was like, you know what? He didn't like cross a line that was disrespectful. He did the best he could at 21 and 22. Like, yes, and like, that's just an example of like my reality. Like most guys we accept, want to hang out or, hey, when we're like something just generic, and it was just a really good art manifestation of showing like, wow, he's doing the best he can with what he has. And it was like a testament to what I've laid as a boundary that you can't even as a man, you wouldn't even cross into something more than that because the respect level is already too high from the way I carry myself. And that's a manifestation. I mean, this isn't even like a man-woman thing. I'm just sharing like this is also the way of the spiritual side of it and then also the science of it. But I've cultivated these thoughts in this way of being, and that's how it manifests in different ways.
I think that's awesome. It just goes to show that you can create your own reality and your version of reality because, I mean, honestly, like the thing that I had to come to terms with is what is reality anyway?
That's a whole different, yeah.
Predetermined. You know what I mean? I know we're not getting into that, but like I just knew that I wanted to create the life that I want and I want to set it up how I want it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is through manifestation and being able to create the
Yeah.
belief. So
Totally. Well,
yeah,
I think,
appreciate you sharing those
well,
stories.
yeah, there's so many. I was like, I think maybe why the neurological side that we talked about here and the manifestation, why I brought up relationships. I mean, not just so, I mean, ironically, it was just Valentine's Day, but why I brought that up is because relationships are key in your life. And I mean, your relationships really does
Mhm.
dictate your net worth in so many ways. So it's like never discount what one person could bring into your life. And so I think it's really powerful. And when you begin to operate in a way of how you want your relationships to be and what you expect from them, that naturally happens quicker, faster, more abundantly. So, yeah, and I think on the next one, on our third one, we can definitely open the
Mhm.
conversation with what is reality. I think we can open that on with what we're talking about because that is definitely something I think is very important to talk about. So,
It is, and I will preface it by saying that I'm not like I just. It's one of those things where if you say you know everything about this topic, I generally am like I don't know shit. Like I just don't know. I don't know what I don't
mhm.
know, but I can tell you based on what I've acquired in the last span of my life, and my version
Yep.
of it, and my opinions on it, and how it's been able to. And that's what I just want to tell everybody is that like this is our experience that we're sharing. This is our perception. This is our belief. This is things that we've been able to learn, cultivate, and then and honestly, like put into practice from a practical standpoint that we apply on in a day to day life. That actually has some wonderful, wonderful. Um, uh, what do you call it? I guess you can call it a
Yeah.
commission in some sense. Like we're able to profit on so many different facets of abundance that it makes things amazing. And if you can take one thing and you can apply it and it can truly change your life, or it makes you want to learn a little bit more and you want to reach out to Colleen, this is her field of expertise, it is not mine. Then that's something else. Like you're well on your way.
Yeah,
So
and I think
I
if you're
appreciate
listening
it.
to this and you want to do that, like I said, my 8-week How to Become a Powerful Manifestor, it's on my website, colleengallagher.co. It's a self-study course, or we're running it live starting the last week in February. So if you listen to this whenever it goes live and you want to join, you can always join us. But this is the second time I've run it live in 3 years. So it's definitely like if you want to know, I definitely recommend because I don't know when I'll run it live again. But it's always powerful. So, but I'm super grateful for you, Mo, and I really enjoyed this and I'm excited to catch you guys on our part 3.
Sweet. Thank you.